Cool. I just learned how to do this thing here. I was I was trying to figure out how to do this like extra like how to have multiple screens so like when I'm like looking up notes, I can like look them up with you, right? And I was like, "Oh,
Right.
how do
Huh.
I do this?" And then I realized I was like, "Oh, okay. I just have to like cuz I use my laptop, but my wife is computer savvy and she's like, "Oh, why don't you just do this?" And I was like, "That's a great question. Why don't I do that?" Cuz I don't know how to do that. Yeah, but it's
Right.
pretty exciting.
And on that lovely note, that was our cold opening, ladies and gentlemen, for this review.
Yeah, I like it.
I
It's
love
always
it.
good to have a
We
cold
are
open that just completely starts with natural talking.
but we are back at it again with another live one for you Biconics wrestling nerds out there. And welcome to another Friday Night Faction review for WWE Smackdown this week on October 6th, 2023. I am one of your hosts, Mikey, and joined with me this time around, we have him back. Thank goodness. Oh, I've missed him so much. He's always a great time. You may have seen him on the Wrestle Dream pay-per-view review, but back once at it again is Luis, my friend. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about SmackDown yesterday. A couple nice things happened, so that'll lead into tonight's pay per view or premium live event, whatever you want to call it. So I'm very excited for this. I think this is pretty good. Let's get to it.
Oh, for sure. So let's just jump straight into it. SmackDown always begins with the recap, which has been their normal thing. Thank goodness it's not too
Hmm.
much. It's not as egregious as before because when Roman Reigns was around, I was like, ugh, another bloodline recap. We just saw this like not that long ago. But we
Hmm.
got a recap of what happened towards the end of last week. LA Knight coming out and being seen as partner for all this. And then immediately we jump into Mr. LA Knight himself cutting a promo inside of the ring, which pretty much sets up everything that's going to go down in the main event
Yep.
tonight. So LA Knight doesn't even get to speak. And then Paul Heyman interrupts with Jimmy and Solo, and just the fans just boo. They're like, boo, how dare you cut off LA Knight? Some of the key takeaways that I found interesting in this is that Paul Heyman literally just gaslights LA Knight, saying that he's a star and he's amazing. You have my respect, LA Knight, but you don't have the respect of Jimmy and Solo. Knight calls out Paul Heyman on his bullshit, which is a great take. And then, of course, Jimmy once again running roughshod because he's making decisions without consulting Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns. And basically, him and Solo are looking to jump LA Knight. But then, of course, Uncle John Cena, as I now refer to him in this weird storyline, he comes out to, even the odds. Everybody just mean mugs each other before the bloodline back off and head backstage for your opening segment. My friend, what did you think of this opening segment?
I thought it was pretty traditional for a go home show. It seems like go home shows typically start off with a really great promo to lead into the next, like what's going to happen next. And it kind of gives us that segue of like what's going to happen. Now, when we do our predictions later, the go home show has really like altered my predictions. I had them pretty much set in stone, but I am a believer that what happens in the go home show affects the actual premium live event. Whoever stands tall typically loses the match. And that's kind of how I always looked at it, but I'm looking forward to what's happening in terms of this storyline because I like the idea of potentially Roman Reigns and LA Knight at Saudi Arabia. So I guess we'll see. We'll wait and see what happens there. But yes, for so far, I'm okay with it. I think it's a pretty solid start.
It is. And again, we will be talking more about LA Knight when we get to the main event. But
Mhm.
immediately after this, we see one of my favorite factions right now in
Mhm.
WWE, the Judgment Day. They roll up to SmackDown, and like a comedy, like a sitcom in a comedy, JD McDonough just suddenly comes into frame, walking besides them, and Damian Priest is like, "What are you doing here? Why is he here?" Because Damian's the only one who's still not on board with JD being a part of the
Mhm.
entourage. And then Rhea tells Damien that JD is here for a reason. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's about to get his ass beat in the main event, isn't he? So, okay. I get somebody has to take it, and we'll talk more about it when we get to the main event. But since being called up from main roster, I'm like, you guys have so much more you can do with JD. But I'm hoping that they're going to give him more to do in the inevitability when Damian Priest, in my opinion, gets thrown out of Judgment Day.
Hmm.
Um, so I get why they're making him look like a schmuck, but to go from NXT UK and NXT JD to main roster JD makes me a little sad, but I'm going to be patient with it.
Yeah, he's definitely not been given the right stuff. I mean, I know WWE is typically the type of company that starts really slow, but I'm watching a lot of Vince McMahon traits in the current booking of JD McDonough because it this is how Vince would do it. He would bring him up and he would have to start from scratch. Like, yeah, these people know you down there, but now they need to get to know you here and we're going to give you the worst storyline, and if you can capitalize on it, then we can move forward and start pushing you. And that's just weird. I just didn't think that Triple H would run that type of method. I don't know if Bruce Pritchard is in the back and he's like, no, this is like tried and true and this works, because it doesn't. We haven't seen this work. I don't know what they're thinking, but
Yeah, I mean, listen, I I love JD, or before he came to over to America and NXT where they made him change it to JD, but Jordan Devlin will always be who I will refer to him as in conversation. And again,
uh
yep, I know somebody has to take the beating that went into this. I'm just hoping that things improve once we get the next chapter of the Judgment Day saga.
I'm actually okay with JD McDonough's name change, not so much with the Butch thing, even though I'm not a big Pete Dunne fan altogether. But I think because of the speaking out movement and what Jordan Devlin, the fact that you can Google and find out so much information, I think WWE had to do something. I think that was part of the reason they changed Austin Theory's name to just Theory. You can Google these guys and type in speaking out, and then you find out things about them. And we don't know what's true, what's not true. There's a lot of accusations out there. And I think they were like, you know what, let's just change his name altogether and give him a chance to shine this way. And, it seemed to work. It was just shocking because he changed his name in NXT, which is not something they typically do.
You know what? Now that you say that, that is that. Now that I think back on it, that was very, very interesting. The fact that he changed it once he got to NXT, because normally they don't change it until you get to main roster. But yeah, allegedly he did some not so very nice things, and
No.
no, so yeah, which sucks because it's a catch-22 for me. I was like, you allegedly did horrible things, but your in ring makes me a fan. I'm conflicted,
Yeah.
but Davian's not happy about it. Rhea again is. We'll see more of Rhea because she's taking charge.
Yep.
I
So much for not having a manager in that group anymore, or a leader.
I know I love the fact it's a walking contradiction, but I'm okay with it where there's no leader in Judgment Day. Let's be real, you guys. Rhea Ripley is running this show. Like, let's be
Yeah.
real. She is and she has. You just don't know. But after this, we get our first match of the evening, which sees three out of the four of these women will be fighting each other at Fastlane, but Charlotte Flair and Asuka team up to face Io Sky and Bailey in this match. Um, it was serviceable in the sense that this is a paint by numbers kind of thing. This is WWE normally does that. It's like, we have a match coming up for this championship. What do we do? Let's put all the participants together in random tag match. So
I mean,
again, it was serviceable, but I'm just like,
yeah,
eh.
I do see that the internet is starting to lose their wits with the whole Bailey thing. I mean, I'm a massive Bailey fan. I think she's phenomenal. Um, I'm also a man, and I love Bailey just in general. You know what I mean? But it just if I'm speaking truthfully, out of all the women that were in the ring yesterday, in terms of in-ring performance and overall story, she's the best one. And it's unfortunate that now she's kind of become the Dolph Ziggler of the brand. like where she's the one taking like I just read a clip where I just read a tweet where someone said that she's actually had like she's lost 88% of the time this year. And it's like, dude, like you this woman carried you through the pandemic. Like her and Sasha carried us. Yes, I know Drew McIntyre carried the men's side and he did a phenomenal job. But in terms of us tuning in weekly, Drew didn't do enough as the world champion. They didn't give him enough to do, but they did give Bailey and Sasha enough to do. They were double champs during that time. I just can't believe it. Like I know Bailey got herself injured a little bit, but she's obviously working well. She's great. She's I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for her. The only thing I could think of is what if we are wrong? What if this whole time we think Bailey's the one who's going to betray Io and she's the one who's going to try to get Io's title at WrestleMania? What if Io and Dakota betray Bailey, kick her out of Damage Control, and then we're rocking with Bailey at WrestleMania? So I guess we'll see. This match itself, I thought it was pretty good. I just felt like Charlotte got a lot of offense in, and I was like, we don't need to see that. Like I want to see more from Io, but obviously Charlotte picking up the win kind of tells us, which will lead into the review a little bit later, kind of tells us like an eye-opening thing, which is I think is going to shock a lot of people today because Charlotte's record in pay-per-views is pretty stellar.
Right. And I'm gonna add a little side tangent to this too. So I'm excited for the triple threat. I think it's going to be good, but spoiler, I got spoiled by it only in the sense that when I went to the house show that came for WWE a couple weeks ago in my area, we got that pay-per-view match in the
Mm,
house show, which by the way was the best match of the entire night, and they gave it 20 whole minutes. I was like, this never happens.
yeah.
I was like, this is great. For me, unfortunately, I'm excited, but since I got spoiled by that house show, I'm like, please just let the pay per view match be as good, if not better, than what I saw because it was stellar at this house
Mhm.
show, and I don't want to be disappointed. And give them time. This is the only women's match that we have going into Fastlane, so please give it time.
I gotta be honest with you. I'm actually a really, really big fan of that type of stuff because there was a feud that was happening a couple of years ago when both of them were with WWE, and it was Aleister Black and Buddy Matthews, and they were wrestling on so many loops, right? And we watched them work. And I went to like a holiday show at Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's called like the Holiday like show, and they worked in there and I was like, wow, they gave them like 20 minutes in here to just tear the house down. And then they worked each other for like, Monday Night Raw and things like that, and I was like, all right, so these guys are just crisp and clean and they're doing such great stuff. So I like the idea if they do that for the men, right? If they give the men the opportunity to go like almost rehearse the match, right? To like a live audience. That's kind of what they used to do back in the 80s and 90s. Like they would start feuds. That's why like a lot of people are mad that WWF never gave us Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan at a pay-per-view because back in those days, like in the house shows, they were working each other every single night. Fans were excited waiting for it, and we just never got it. So I'm excited that WWE does that for the women. I think it shows a level of respect for them as well. Like, hey, go out there, give this match to a live crowd, see how they react. If they boo you, if they cheer you, if they're kind of like, holy shit, whatever it's going to be, like, let's transition that. And then eventually we'll put that on a premium live event. I think that's just so smart. That's something I wish the other company would do.
Right. And I will say, so because I was in the audience for the whole entire Super Show, um, it was kind of even between all three.
Yeah.
Like pretty equal cheers and boos for both. Charlotte got a little bit more cheers, but not by much.
Hmm.
But of course, it's Charlotte Flair, so that's to be expected.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised of how much at least in my section, how much they were booing Asuka. I was like, what is happening? Maybe that's just me because I'm a fan of Asuka's,
Yeah.
but that one was weird. I will also say too, we also got Becky versus Tiffany for the NXT Championship at that house show, and I was like one of two people yelling for both women because I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Tiffany!" And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh." I'm like one of the few people that actually watches NXT. Okay,
Hmm.
that's fine. But it was phenomenal. But this match was serviceable. I know people are online are complaining that Bailey keeps losing, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I feel you, but who else in this current match right here? Who else is going to be taking this pin?
I agree with you. There's no other person that could take the pin at the moment. She kind of has to. Plus, it'll lead into the next feud. It'll lead into what's going to happen, and we're all kind of aware that Damage Control is either going to break up, or, implode at some point. And if Bailey's the one taking all the losses, it's only going to add depth to the story. So I know people are upset, and I'm rocking along with you. I'm upset too. I'm a big Bailey fan, but I think we just have to be patient. We have to practice patience.
Right. And I know Bailey's good for it because again, since coming back from injury, she has been doing anything and everything that they ask of her
Mhm.
from her very long feud with Bianca Belair, which was great. And then it kind of went on a little too long, in my opinion, because they kept spinning their wheels, but I still thought it was a lot of fun. So I know Bailey is going to be good with this. And
Mhm.
again, she's willing to do anything and everything over there on SmackDown. So I'm just like, somebody has to. So again, match was serviceable. We'll talk more about the other three in our predictions because how we got to this match was, I found it very interesting, and people I feel like are ignoring the story point of how the championship match came to be at Fastlane.
Mhm.
So, which means we get to talk more about Bailey later. So I'm not upset about that. But after that, okay, I know we're building towards Fastlane, but I can immediately smell somebody's going to betray somebody. Things are going to get out of hand as we get to Survivor Series. So Paul, Jimmy, and Solo are walking backstage as they're heading back to their locker room. Paul Heyman makes it a point to tell Jimmy he can't be making decisions without Roman Reigns' approval. But again, Jimmy is in La La Land and he's just like, nah, bro, Roman's gonna is good. Like, he'll be would do the same thing I would. And I'm like, Jimmy's you're about to find out next week that that's
Mhm.
not the case. Um and as soon as they walk into the locker room, again, I love me some faction on faction stare down violence. So the bloodline walk into their locker room, and Judgment Day has just confiscated the locker room and are just chilling.
Mhm.
And so there's a little bit of a back and forth. We go to commercial, we come back, Judgment Day, bloodline, they're just staring like having a stare off. And then once again, the not the leader of this group, but leader of this group, Rhea Ripley tells everybody, "You need to leave. Me and Paul Heyman has some business to discuss." And the
Mhm.
last thing we see is Damian Priest and Solo Sikoa just like mean mugging each other as everybody leaves the room. Which I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, please give me that match.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so many things stick out about this. It's clear, like the whole acknowledge me bit with Rhea and stuff. Like as we see this type of stuff, I'm just kind of it leaves me more curious, which I think Eric Bischoff has preached this for years. He has preached this ever since before he ran WCW. He said, always end the show with questions. This segment, like you said, the last thing we see is them walking out. We don't like we, and it goes back to another segment. Like I think there's three different segments for this locker room, right? So it leaves us asking questions. But my question is, if Paul Heyman can't do anything, he can't even like tie his shoes without calling Roman Reigns. Then what's the dynamic going to be like next Friday with Roman and Rhea in the ring? Are we going to get that Nia Jax being unveiled as like the next member of the bloodline, almost like you've been causing too much trouble and I have someone here for you? Like, are we going to like do this type of stuff? I'm just very curious to see what happens because so far the Judgment Day has been right there with the bloodline and they haven't done anything wrong. But a great way to piss off Roman Reigns would be if one of the Usos won the tag titles tonight. That would be a and especially the Uso he doesn't like. But we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, that was. I'm excited for that match, but I'm also like, huh, okay, sure, why not? But again, as you mentioned, this will not be the last time we see Rhea and Paul Heyman because we won't have to wait long. But before that, we get our next match of the evening, which is Rey Mysterio taking on Bobby Lashley. I mean, I Bobby Lashley just Ray is I say this with the utmost respect. Ray is very good at selling because Bobby literally just ragdolled him for the majority of this match.
Yeah.
Like it's Bobby Lashley. Like so, I
Yeah,
mean, there's
Bobby's
nothing more to
really
say.
good. Yeah, I want to give some flowers to Bobby Lashley here because I was a big fan of Bobby Lashley when he first debuted. I was lucky enough to watch him wrestle Mr. Kennedy and Fit Finley live at Reading, Pennsylvania at a Smackdown. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy has got all the goods. I remember being upset that Taker picked Batista over him for WrestleMania because I thought this would have been a great way to showcase ECW. But well, I will say when he left and became the boss in TNA, he completely changed his style. He's not the same worker. Now he's more consistent. He paces himself well with the crowd. He waits for reactions. He breathes spots out. And even beating down Ray yesterday, it wasn't like bam 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 bam. It was more like, oh, I'm going to slam you here. I'm going to take a beat. And then I'm going to pick you up and then I'm going to do something else and then I'm going to take a beat. And I think that in wrestling, you have to pace yourself. And even though, because the whole point of this is if Ray was going to win this match, right, then the match would have had to move faster. It would have had to move at a faster pace because that's Ray's style. The moment we saw the pace kind of gear towards Bobby Lashley, we knew Bobby was going to win this match. So that was pretty cool too. I like these two working together. I've always been a fan of Bobby working smaller guys. I'm one of those few guys that actually liked the Bobby Lashley Finn Balor WrestleMania match, but I know a lot of people don't like it because they felt like that power bomb just didn't fit. Finn Balor power bombing him. That's the one thing people point out about the match that didn't fit.
Once again, we can never have anything nice. I'm just like I just like wrestling. Like that's
Hmm.
I'm very simple, and it's really weird because we review these shows, but I'm very simple. I like professional wrestling. Do I have my critiques of it? Sure, but was I entertained? Absolutely. But
Hmm. Hmm.
again, Bobby Lashley dominates most of this match. Ray tries to eventually does get towards the end of this match, he gets a little bit of the offense in. He gets ready to hit a 619. But of course, the suit profits, as I'm calling them now,
I love that.
because
I
they
love that
upgraded.
name.
I I can't take credit for that one. One of our other co-hosts came up with that name, and so I got to acknowledge the professor on that one because that's great.
Love it. It was
But
beautiful.
I,
Beautiful name.
yes, they upgraded from the streets and now they're in the suits, so it is great. But a distraction for them causes Ray to not pay attention and walk himself straight into a Bobby Lashley spear for Bobby Lashley to pick up the victory here. And then, of course, there's a little bit of a beatdown that happens after the match, which just leaves Ray and Santos in the ring after everybody kinds of retreats, which then plays into what happens later, but we'll get there. But I thought this was a fun match. I'm not going to complain that
Yeah,
I get to see Bobby Lashley wrestle on my television screen again because it's been way too long. I am
agreed.
still in the mindset that it was an egregious error and a sin, if you will, to not have Bobby on WrestleMania. There were
I
some
mean,
choices there.
obviously
I
we
was like,
knew.
there's
Yeah. I don't know who he would have worked, but when I look back at that WrestleMania, that Shane McMahon moment, that didn't need to happen. It just didn't need to happen.
just a whole plethora of night two was very confusing and certain things didn't
Hmm.
need to be there.
Agreed.
But, certain things needed to happen. But after this, we get our second backstage with Rhea. So Rhea and Paul Heyman are talking in the locker room. So this is continuity continuing on from earlier in the night. Rhea proposes that the Judgment Day and the Bloodline should have an alliance. Paul Heyman says that he needs to clear it with Roman Reigns and I need to have it authorized. And then the first power move from Rhea in this whole segment that just made me excited. She takes her fingers, puts it on the phone, pushes it down. It's like, it's authorized now. I'm like, ooh, Rhea, we're stepping over boundaries. I was like, yes, this is what I want to see from Rhea. I love it so much.
Yeah, I
But
agree. I think this
mhm,
showcases her in a way that like no other woman has been showcased in professional wrestling, and this puts
mhm,
her in that spot where it's almost like I'm not gonna wait. It reminds me of Becky Lynch during that WrestleMania season where she main evented. It was almost like I'm not going to allow the men to dictate how I run things. I'm just going to be that person, and it is clear that they want Rhea Ripley to be the main star for the women. It's very clear. I love the way it's transitioning, and like I said, I'm excited for the segment next week because Rhea's going to come out during Roman Reigns' speech.
Oh, absolutely. But then she continues it because Paul Heyman says, "You don't understand. I have to clear this with Roman." And then Rhea rip. I had to pause after what Rhea said next because I had to walk away. I'm like, I, I was like, "This is too great. This is great." Maybe I'm biased because I'm a big Rhea Ripley fan, but she's like,
Mhm.
Paul, acknowledge me. And I paused and I was like, nope, I gotta walk away. She just dropped the line of the night. It's done. It's a wrap. Like you
Mhm.
immediately sold me. And I've been very critical of this bloodline story feud. But from this simple moment, now I'm invested only because you had the dimension of the judgment day and the possibility of what this looks like going forward into tonight and eventually what this leads into for Survivor Series. So Rhea sold me on what we're looking forward to.
I love it. I love it. I agree with you. I thought it was such a great segment.
It really, really was. And as always, Paul's still not sure. And then Rhea says that if you don't do something about it, just letting you know, Judgment Day will retaliate. And then she dismisses Paul Heyman to go make his phone call to Roman Reigns, which he eventually does.
Mhm.
I love Rhea being mastermind here. And even though it's a brief moment, we will see her later before the main event as well. Again, I really enjoyed this segment. Rhea has me sold on what's to come tonight and for the rest of this year. And yeah, just to me, Rhea is finally being used in the way that I've always wanted her to be since being a part of Judgment Day. And now we're finally getting it.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed, agreed. I was very happy with the segment itself. I'm excited to see what happens next, but like I said, it just left me very curious, and I think that's such a great thing in professional wrestling because there is no curiosity. Like we mentioned earlier, there's this rumor. I can't really put my scratch my head where it is, but there's this rumor of a potential coming back, and I'm just like, it's just certain, it's everywhere. Like even ESPN has picked it up, and it's just like, why? Like, what happened to just like surprises? Yeah, but so I'm excited for
Right.
this.
Y- yeah. So we'll talk about that once we get to our Fastlane predictions, because then we'll spend some time on that.
Hmm.
Because I'm like, it's currently related because Fastlane is the final
Hmm.
stop before Survivor Series. So after this
If I
fun
could,
little segment, oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, did we skip the phone call, or is that what you were gonna talk about next?
Well, I because as soon as Rhea left, then she, Paul Heyman gets on the phone. It's like call Roman Reigns, and then
No, no, not
that
that. The
that
Rey
happens.
Mysterio phone call.
Oh, that comes afterwards. This comes towards before
Okay,
the
okay,
main event. Yeah,
okay.
so we're gonna call because don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna skip that because if it's who I think it is, I am excited. But we'll
Yes.
talk about it when we get to that point. After this segment between Rhea and Paul, we get our next match, which is Theory taking on Dragon Lee. Can we just announce that he's on the main roster now? Like let's
Oh my
they're like
god.
from NXT. I'm like, bro, I was like, I already knew. I was just like, I knew he was gonna be in main roster, but I was like, damn, this soon. But all right, I'm not upset about it.
I don't mean to poke fun because I know this is a WWE Smackdown review, but I just have to point this out. In such a short amount of time, WWE has taken Dragon Lee and like proposition, like just put him in the spot where he's going to be the next big cruiserweight, the next Rey Mysterio. It is clear that that is what they're doing. He's that guy now, right? So we have like that Eddie Guerrero type with Dom, and now we have the Rey Mysterio type with Dragon Lee, and it's like, all right, this is going to be our big baby face. They're going to be selling his mask on WWE Shop, and the kids are going to be dressing up as him, and they're showcasing him well. He works a different type of cruiserweight style, more of like he works a lot more like Eddie Guerrero, where he does more so like he wrestles bigger than he is, right? And then I look at that, and then I look at the ending of this match with another person that comes out to help him win. And I thought to myself, this is the way you position guys to do well. This is how you do it. And I'm just curious as to what about Dragon Lee did WWE see that the other company didn't because he was over there first?
I don't know, man. And if I'm being completely honest too, I'm excited for people who only watch the main roster shows for
Hmm.
WWE to be introduced to Dragon Lee. I mean, him and Dominic put on a stellar match like last what was it last week? Yeah, it was last week.
Yeah,
For
it
the
was
NXT
Raw.
North America Championship on Raw. Yeah. So last week on
Yeah,
Raw, Dragon Lee and Dominic, because I also it was both of them because that was Dominic's best match so far for me. And both of
yeah,
them worked really, really well. And it made me excited. I'm like, Dominic actually won this match clean. Like
yeah.
clean.
100% clean,
Oh,
no cheating, no nothing. I thought that was
it was great.
perfect. That's what makes a really great heel though for
Mhm.
Dominic Mysterio, because when you look at it, like in the past, there's always that slimy heel that just can't get over with the crowd, or like he's just going to get booed and then eventually it's just going to be like boring. You need another reason to hate him. So originally, you and I are watching this, right? And thousands or millions of people that are watching wrestling are watching it and you're like, Dom can't win a match by himself. He just can't do it. And then when you least expect it, and all the cards are stacked against him, and he's like, wow, what's Dom going to do since he can't win by himself? He beats him clean. And that's what helps, because now it's like, oh man, now it's that stuff creeping up in the back of your head, like, he's just being pushed to the moon, and it's just another way to hate him. It's great. He's the best heel in the business right now. It's not even close.
Oh, absolutely. He gets the most organic like heat for every time he gets put on television. It is a beautiful thing to watch. And this match, I liked it only in the sense that this was like a main roster NXT match because you had Theory, Grayson, Cameron Grimes, and Dragon Lee, all
Mhm.
four of them involved in this match in some form or whatever. I'm like, "Aw, I missed you guys when you were on NXT, and I'm happy to see you now on my main roster screen, especially Cameron. I have
Yeah.
you got called up and then they haven't used you, but hopefully this leads to Cameron doing something with Dragon Lee. But
Yes.
Grayson does come out. Grayson does come out to help Austin Theory. Cameron Grimes comes out to even the odds. And then the most devastating move in professional wrestling history gets used by Dragon Lee, a surprise roll up on Theory to pick up the win for him. Great match. I would love if these four feuded further down the line or continue this
Mhm.
little feud because it seems Pretty Deadly will be busy next week because I'm excited that they're returning finally.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I agree with you.
And
This
again,
is
I'm
gonna be a really great like four way when it happens.
I would it's going to be so great. And of course, Dragon Lee is awesome. I love him so
Yeah,
much. And
100%.
yeah, so after this, really quickly backstage, we get a short kind of off mic little segment where we see Rhea Ripley talking to Jimmy. We don't hear what she says, but I love the plotting. And then this is
Yeah.
when we get into the aforementioned phone call from Ray, where, our other two members of LWO are not cleared and, not physically able to compete at Fastlane. So it just leaves Santos and Ray. I also love that Zelina volunteered. She's just like, as much as I want to beat their ass, I was just like, I thought about it for a hot second. I was like, no, in the context of this, it wouldn't work. But then I'm like, but then again, you know how to wrestle taller guys, Zelina, because your husband is quite tall.
Hmm.
Just putting
Yeah.
it out there. But then Ray's like, I have an idea. I'm gonna go make a phone call. I'll be right back. And I was just like, please let it be Carlito tonight. Let it be Carlito.
100%. I can think of no one better. I really just we he's been signed with the company since July. That's been released. They just have nothing for him. I guess they just wanted to get him in there because when he showed up at Backlash, it was very clear the fans were excited. So I would see AEW capitalizing on that and being like, "Mira, papi, come over here. We'll make you big." And listen, I have said this before. I've said it on a most recent post. You had some really kind words on it. My favorite wrestlers are just about done. They're about to walk out, right? And I look at it as Carlito was one of those guys that he was pre Brian for me. He was like a guy that I thought I was like, finally, like I'm gonna have like my version of an Eddie Guerrero. Like Eddie was one of my guys too, but like Carlitos, like, he's ours. He said, de la isla. You know what I mean? Like, I watched him grow up. I watched him wrestle with like a shaved head. Like back in the day when he wore jeans and a tank top, John Moxley style. Like, we're talking about, like, WWC World Heavyweight Champion. Like, I'm a big fan of his. I'm hoping that he comes back out because I want to see him in that spot, man. I just think with this day and age, with the way of, like, how progressive wrestling is and things like that, I would not be surprised, even though he's like 45 now, that he winds up being in the main event. I seriously look at it like that. He could be a main eventer. He's that good.
I mean,
And
exactly.
I mean, in the ring, he's phenomenal. He is phenomenal, man, and it's clear, and I love it because all of a sudden, the workers that in professional wrestling have stopped doing the backstabber that used to do it, and it's like, all right, like, that's a great way to protect finishers too. You know, it was almost like when Damian Priest, because I don't know if people know this, but Damian Priest's original finisher is Cody Rhodes' finisher. They had the same finisher, the Crossroads, and whatever Damian called it. And then all of a sudden, Damian stopped using it and he used the sit out choke slam. And it was like, hold up, hold on a minute. Why are you not doing this move that you've been doing since you were Punishment Martinez? Like, what's going on here? But Cody came back. And that's Cody's move. That's why. So that's kind of how I look at it. This is a great way to show us that, like, Galito's coming back and this is his move. And I'm excited.
Oh, I am super excited too. And we'll talk more about Carlito when we make our predictions for Fastlane at the end of this video. But after this little segment, we get a quick recap video from commentary, hyping up the last man standing match between Seth and Shinsuke. God, they're going to destroy each other, and I'm excited to see. That's all I have to say
Yeah.
on that. Then we get the bumpers for next week. So Triple H is going to make an appearance for the season premiere of SmackDown. I'm just like, you always pick the weirdest time, WWE, to have your season premieres. And you always change the goalpost of when the official season ends and begins, but it is what it is. Roman Reigns is also coming back, so probably going to address what happens tonight in, well, Jimmy's and Solo's match against John Cena and LA Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only advertised match that we got for last week, that is a returning Pretty Deadly taking on the Brawling Brutes. I love that the Yes Boys are back. I'm just going to put it out there. They are campy, they're ridiculous, and I love them to death.
I love this for so many reasons, but the main reason that I'll just stick to here is what great faith. And, like, I don't know if you're a big football fan, Mikey, but in football, let's say your quarterback is having a really bad game, right? And he throws to the other team a couple of times. Your coach has a decision. Either I'm going to take that quarterback and I'm going to sit him down and put in the backup, or I'm going to let him fix his own mistake. And I love that Pretty Deadly got hurt wrestling the Brawling Brutes. And now it's almost like, Ridge, we're giving you another shot. Go out there, work these guys that you were a part of injuring, or that you took part in some way, shape, or form. Now let's go out there. Let's give you another shot. And their first match back is with the team that injured them. I thought that was such a great thing, and I thought it was super important for all four of the men involved.
I'm excited for this match because, once again, like I said, Pretty Deadly is back on my television screen. And also, I agree with you too. For all four of these men, it's important, but for me specifically, because I do like Ridge, it's just he's had a very bad string of
Mhm.
incidences that have happened between injuring Elton Prince, and then everyone was on his case of what happened with Biggie, which the even Biggie to this day is just like, guys, it happened. Like, just let it go. Which I'm like, I kind of agree with you, Biggie. It's, I mean, it was horrible, and we saw it live on my television screen, but
Mhm.
Ridge didn't deserve all the hate that he got. It was an accident, but I'm hoping that I want redemption for Ridge because I do like him. I really do.
Yeah,
And I, like you said, I love that next week's match is gonna offer that redemption for him and just to rekindle the story that has been put on pause because of the injury. Which I also have to say, I love the fact that now that they're coming back, WWE didn't do the typical thing where someone got injured, so they drop everything
yeah,
and then we never hear of it again. But we're picking right back up where we left. I was just like, thank you, WWE. You made
great
a
job.
good
Yeah.
decision. I was like, we haven't forgot about it. And so hopefully they continue to do that. Then we get the main event slash the main segment because the match itself wasn't really the big talking point here. Jimmy Uso versus LA Knight. They went a couple of minutes and then Sokoas is like, hold my beer and decided to
Hmm.
give a DQ, which allowed LA Knight to win. Then everything just broke down from here. Solo and Jimmy beat down LA Knight. Cena comes down. Judgment Day comes down. It's 2-on-6 situation. And then Jay's music hits
Hmm.
first, which I was just like, the stare down between him and Jimmy was a thing of beauty.
Hmm.
And then Cody Rhodes' theme hits, and then all hell breaks loose.
Listen, that I just want to say Vince Russo has been one of the dumbest people in professional wrestling history. The only thing that man ever did that was good was the Brawl for All. I will stand on by myself. I know people don't like it. I love the Brawl for All. I thought it was perfect. I loved. I hated a lot of those wrestlers that got knocked out. So I was really happy. Like I wasn't a big Doctor Death fan. And anyway, so when I look at Vince Russo making a comment like he made 2 weeks ago, which is Vince, like Cody Rhodes isn't as over with the audience. Motherfucker, they just sang his entire song during an entire segment. That's it
They
was
like cut it off. Exactly. They cut it off early and they kept
yeah,
going with it.
yup.
Even they continued to sing it partway through the beatdown.
Yes. There is nobody. I saw somebody, this guy Raj Giri, who does a lot of a Twitter discourse with wrestling fans, and he said, "Look at the pop LA Knight got, and look at the pop Cody got. LA Knight's the biggest babyface in the company." I was like, "What were you watching, pendejo? That's not even close to true. What are you talking about? Like, did you just gaslight the entire Twitterverse? Oh my god!" I was like, "What is wrong with this guy?" I saw that tweet and I was like, I can't even answer this dude. Like, this guy está loco. I don't know, man.
I love when you're on these things because you provide great insight and you just tell it like it is. And that's what we're trying to do here. I love it so much. So
Yeah.
when I'm laughing, I want you to know I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because this is great. I love the
Oh man.
honesty. And that's
Yeah.
and that's what I want from all of my hosts here. We're all honest to a fault about our opinions. And
Yeah. I don't understand what's wrong with people. I feel like people are just trying to spread negativity for no reason at all. And I don't know who really started it. There's got to be some kind of pundit. I feel like it might have been that guy Skip Bayless that started on ESPN. Like it's popular to get you fired up, you know what I mean? And it was just like I get it, but now there's too many of those analysts. Now we need normal like down to earth people that are just like, wow, that was really interesting. The crowd is like really into Cody Rhodes. It looks like he's riling back up, getting towards WrestleMania season. Like, another way to have him do it would be to have him lose the Royal Rumble and then to get the crowd even more behind him. Like, what the hell? You're trying to keep our guy down. That would be great to see. But unfortunately, no, it's like, no, Cody's not over. Like,
okay, so I want to speak on that really quickly. Not necessarily Cody not being over, but just this whole idea. And this is what has baffled my mind. It's like the wrestling community will call you a mark if you speak positively about anything that is happening. Now, some people have like hot takes where they like something and it's just to get a rise out of people.
mhm,
But there have been so many people I have seen who are positively contributing to this passion of professional wrestling that we like, that you're
yeah.
called a mark when you actually like the things that certain companies do. And it's the same thing. Like, oh, I like what WWE is doing. Mark. AEW. Mark.
Yep.
Impact. Ring of Honor. Mark. NXT. You shill. I'm like, when did it become okay? And when did it become the new normal to like, unless you want to be taken seriously, the only thing you have to do is critique all the time?
I don't
Listen,
know.
we're allowed to critique as fans, but it's both, it's a give and take. Like if I like something, even if I'm the only person that does, I'm gonna say it because it brings me joy and it brings me happiness. So how are you
100%.
going to dictate that for me? This is, we are being entertained by people who do this for a living, and they are
Mhm.
putting their bodies out there on the line for us to be entertained. And I've never understood, not just here in professional wrestling, but in just major sports in general, the last couple of years, it's been the only way you make an impact is if all you do is criticize, criticize, criticize. And I'm like, what
Yep.
happened to giving praise? I was like, no wonder lots of these athletes either delete their social media, shut down their social medias, or they're gone because they need to take a break because listen, when you're constantly surrounded by negativity, eventually it has an impact on your mental state, your physical state, your emotional state, and to a certain level, if you subscribe to any religion, a
Yeah.
spiritual state. Like everything gets thrown out of whack. I'll get off my soapbox now because I can go on for ages on this. It makes no damn sense to me. And that's one of the reasons why I started Biconics is because I want to be a positive force. We can critique, but we also enjoy this. Let's not be dicks to each other on the internet.
Absolutely. I will give any wrestler a chance. I will spend most of my time. I got to be honest with you. There have been wrestlers that have taken me time to like them. Like I'll just break some news on here like Seth Rollins, I wasn't a fan of his at all. Like in the beginning, the architect, the whole the whole thing with like Triple H and everything, I was just like, why him? And I think it was just selfish. It was almost like I don't see him as a great heel. Now Ambrose, take him to that group. That like he feels like a heel to me. That's kind of how I looked at it. But eventually I was like, wow, he's just undeniable. He's phenomenal. And the same way with like Adam Cole, I didn't like him either. Watching him live and then watching him give Jushin Thunder Liger possibly his worst match in his career, and I was thinking like, this guy's awful. And then I realized he's actually good for professional wrestling. Right now, I'm going through that battle right now with MJF. I don't like a single thing that man does. Not a single thing. I see this man as a little kid playing dress up, trying to pretend to be Ric Flair walking down the ring. That's what I see. So it's just one of those things. Like he's just everything he does is Ric Flair. It's like, all right, you know. So I mean, I think that it's okay to have those positive and negative like aspects of wrestling, but to attack people for having these opinions, it's like that's brutal, man. Like this is wrestling. It's wrestling. It's General Hospital. That's what my dad used to call it. It's General Hospital. That's it.
My grandma said the same thing.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's a soap opera. Esto es una novela. That's just what it is. That's it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what people want. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. But to close out our thesis statement, we here at the Biconics, all nine of us, especially us two currently reviewing SmackDown, just don't be dicks to people. And,
Yeah,
life will be much simpler. And
hundred
I
percent.
promise you that we can be the best sports related fandom in the world because we try to be there for each other and not be base human beings. But speaking of attacking things, JD got the bricks beat off him towards the finish of this brawl. I'm like, damn, JD. Kudos on the selling.
I'm so glad you said that. I was just about to carry in. I'll let you finish up and like wrap up SmackDown before we do our predictions. But the one thing that stuck out to me, there's only one thing that stuck out because this felt like okay, baby faces win. Got it. They stand tall. But we were talking about this. I think you and I think was it the professor? We were talking about LA Knight's finisher, right?
Yep, it was definitely
Everybody
the
needs to
professor.
watch the way JD took it. He took it the way everybody should. It looked brutal when he took it. I was like, all right, if everybody takes the finisher like that, this move is amazing. It looks awesome.
Again, and I'm like, JD sold it correctly, and I have to give JD credit here because he sold everything that was given to him,
Mhm.
and especially LA Knight's finisher. I'm just like, I agree with you. That's the way that I feel like everyone should sell LA Knight's finisher. Put your own spin on it, but that's how it should be done.
Absolutely. Like I'm sure Ricochet and RVD would take it in such a way it would look brutal. But like they probably stand up straight up in the air, like take it right on top of their head. But you know, either way, I just thought it was a great way to end the show. Good way to get everybody excited for tonight.
Yep. So baby faces stand tall as the SmackDown goes off the air. Okay, so really quickly, let's give our review. I give this a solid 3 out of 5 empanadas for me. Again,
Yeah.
this that main event segment definitely gave it a lot of the bonus points for me because this was a serviceable go home show. I also like the interlacing storyline between Rhea and Paul Heyman throughout this whole entire thing. Her doing literally the legwork to get all this together,
Mhm.
And then the ending segment gave me shades of Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression, just everybody brawling to end the show. And I appreciate that WWE does it sparingly because that was my biggest critique over the summer for other companies that almost every single show ended in some sort of all-out brawl, so to speak.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
3 out of 5 for me.
I agree with you. That's the perfect rating. 3 out of 5 for me too. I think that the lows were definitely too low to give it a 4 or a 5, but I think the highs were pretty nice. I loved every interaction with the Bloodline and the Judgment Day. I thought they were great. I thought Rhea Ripley really shined today. I love how I feel like the crowd really sold me just based on them singing Cody Rhodes' song. I loved some of the selling in this. I was very surprised, and I will definitely say that if there was one like major high point for me, it was Austin Theory versus Dragon Lee. That was definitely way better than I expected for a go home show. Did not expect that. It's going to be very hard for any match tonight, not involving Seth or Shin, to beat that match from last night.
Oh, absolutely. So speaking of, Seth and Shin, now let's spend the next however long it's going to take us. Let's do our predictions for Fastlane, since at the time of this recording, it is literally later tonight.
Hmm.
Though this SmackDown review is hours before the show, so it's not going to be like Payback where we do the review. Okay, bye. It's literally this cage match is starting in a couple seconds. Bye.
Yeah.
um, so again, I don't hate the fact that now it seems that well, at least most of the WWE pay per views that are not your big ones only tend to have 5 to 6 matches, and I'm not upset about it.
No.
People say they should have more matches. I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to have a repeat of that one WrestleMania where it was like 6 whole hours. That was a
Yep.
long show for
Yep.
one night, and some of us need to work in the morning.
Yeah.
It was But let's just go over it. So, in no particular order, hold up, I have the card on my phone somewhere. There you are. So, in no particular order, let's just go over what we're getting. So, let's start. You know what? Let's just start it. So, LWO and a mystery partner. So, LWO being represented by Ray and Santos and a mystery partner, taking on Bobby Lashley and the Suit Profits is now that I'm going to call them by.
Hmm.
So again, I'm hoping mystery partner is Carlito,
Agreed.
but I'm picking Bobby and the Suit Profits for this one.
So I believe that if it's Carlito that comes out, I believe that they get the win. I think it'll shock people, and it'll be a lot like Cody Rhodes beating Seth at their first WrestleMania match, because it'll just shock everybody. And he's a body guy, so he's going to look as big as Bobby Lashley. He's not going to be like, they're not going to be able to throw him around and stuff. So when I look at him, I'm just like, all right, they can't debut Carlito. They can't have us have this surprise unless Rey Mysterio eats the pin. That's the only thing. Rey Mysterio or Santos eats the pin. But that's kind of how I look at it. If it's not Carlito and if it's just somebody else, then I see the you know Bobby Lashley and the Suit Profits. I see them actually being the ones that win this match. But for now, I'm gonna go with the LWO.
Gotcha. And again, I'm not going to be mad. I want it to be Carlito. I will not be mad if LWO picks up the win if it's Carlito. If it's not Carlito, then I'm still probably going to enjoy this match, but I will be sad.
Yeah.
So next up, I know this is probably will be later in the card, but I want to get through like the non-title matches first. So John Cena and LA Knight versus the Bloodline, which is being represented by Jimmy and Solo Sikoa. So I picked Cena and LA Knight just for the
Hmm.
fact that either Bloodline or Judgment Day, I feel like both of them can't lose on this card. Or maybe they can, but who knows? But it's Cena, and Cena rarely loses, and I use the term rarely. He rarely loses when he comes back to for these pay-per-view matches. And again, it's LA Knight, so you already strapped the rocket onto him, so having him lose here would kind of not derail it, but I will have question marks. But my pick is Cena and LA Knight because I think with Bloodline losing, it's going to come into play with Roman Reigns returning to SmackDown next week to kind of figure out what the hell happened while I was gone.
Agreed. I pick LA Knight specifically getting the win, pinning one of the bloodline. I feel like that's a great way to have Roman come out, talk his shit up next Friday, and then have LA Knight interrupt him, and that'll lead into a program there. So that's my prediction there is LA Knight gets the win tonight. Specifically him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he needs to be the one to get the win for him and Cena because it makes no sense for Cena to get the win for his team. Let's
Mhm.
see. So next up, again in no particular order, for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships, it is the Judgment Day, which is going to be Finn and Damian Priest taking on Cody Rhodes and Jay Uso. So because I in my logic, I picked Jimmy and Solo going down in that match. I picked Judgment Day to retain because to me it makes no sense for this new alliance for both of them to lose at this
Mhm.
pay per view. One or the other has to win, and I'm leaning more towards it's easier to have Judgment Day win than it is to have Bloodline beat Cena and LA Knight. So I'm picking Judgment Day to retain, though obviously it's Judgment Day, so shenanigans are going to happen.
Yeah. I'm actually picking Cody and Jimmy or Cody and Jay. I think that it actually leads into the to Jay getting in more trouble next Friday or Jimmy getting in more trouble next Friday. He loses the match tonight, but then his brother wins the tag titles with somebody else. It's almost like, will Roman actually say the words, "Did we pick the wrong Uso?" You know what I mean? Like I just think it leads into it. I feel like that's what needs to happen. But so that's my pick tonight is I'm picking Cody and Jay as the brand new undisputed tag team champions.
Ooh, that'd be very interesting. And what I like about Fastlane, especially with well, minus the women's match and probably Seth and Shinsuke, this one I'm still 50-50 on, even though I picked Judgment Day to retain. Either way, it can go in either direction, depending on what story they wanted to tell. But we'll have to see later tonight. What I'm hope what next up for the WWE Women's Championship, it is a triple threat match that sees Io defending her title against both Asuka and Charlotte Flair. Please give me 15-20 minutes and I will be happy, but Io is definitely retaining here.
100%.
And I would love for Io to pin Charlotte to pick up the victory, but I'm like 70 I'm 70-30 in the sense that I think Asuka might be taking the pin, but I would be shocked if they let Io pin Charlotte here.
Yeah, I actually I wanted to say this earlier. A lot of people are complaining they think that Charlotte's going to win the title again because to get her to 16. I don't think that'll happen here. Uh Charlotte actually has done the job for Io a couple of times now. This is one of the people that they've actually had go over on Charlotte a lot, so it wouldn't be surprising to me. And I actually think Io beats Charlotte Flair tonight.
I hope that's the case. I really, really do. But then we get okay. These two guys are going to kill each other, and I'm here for it. But in a last man
Yeah.
standing match for the World Heavyweight Championship, Seth freaking Rollins taking on Shinsuke Nakamura. S- Okay, so I picked Seth to retain, but honestly, I would not be upset if you let Shinsuke run with it for a bit. But I don't know, man. If the reports are true that Seth is holding on to this title just a little bit longer because for some reason they want Seth versus Roman again, which I'm like, cool, I guess. I don't know, man. Like it hurts me
Hmm.
because I was just like Shinsuke may like at Payback, I picked Seth to win, but Shinsuke made me believe he has a chance here. And I don't know. I picked Seth, but again, this is one of those matches, whatever story they want to tell here. I just know this is going to be a good
Hmm.
match. Shinsuke and Seth are going to kill it. And this is one of the matches where like, I don't really care who wins. I'm going to get a good show between these two.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I can't see Seth losing the title here. I've just come to grips with the fact that Damien's going to fail his cash in. Like I feel like that's what they're going to do. So I think that you can't fail against Shinsuke Nakamura. I think a couple months down the road, possibly like towards Royal Rumble, Seth has a match. He gets he gets beat down, and that's when you have Damien try to cash in, and then in my mind, that's when Damien gets kicked out of Judgment Day. I just kind of see it going really downhill for Damien. I mean, That's kind of how I look at it. So I definitely see Seth winning. I think they might tease a cash in tonight, almost like Seth is like barely able to
Mhm.
stand, and then at the top of the ramp there's Damian Priest. But I don't think he'll actually. I don't think he'll cash in, but I do think Seth wins this match.
Right. And then it's, Survivor Series, depending on what they want to do with it, because again, it's me trying to uncondition myself where the last couple Survivor Series has been champion versus champion matches, but it wasn't the case last year. We didn't really get that, which I appreciated. Now, there have been rumors going around that while they haven't officially announced it, obviously I'm like 90% sure we're going to need to get a War Games match. Now,
That would be great.
honestly, just make Survivor Series. Just give me a War Games match. And I hate to say this because I love women's wrestling, but there really hasn't been anything to warrant a women's War Games match this year, which makes me sad to say. But as far as the men, I want to get your take on it. So normally, War Games is traditionally 4-on-4, but I've also
Hmm.
been seeing reports that WWE's playing with the idea of having like a 6-on-6 in War Games. I'm like, that's a lot of people in that ring.
I think
But
it'll work, especially if it's War Games has multiple rings. So
that is very, very true. So the rumor report is for the 6 man, it would be Damien, Finn, JD, Dominic, and then Jimmy
Roman.
and Solo. Well, or Roman could be one in some sort of iteration of which 2 members of the bloodline will be represented, and it would be versus Jay, Cody, Sammy, Kevin Owens, and then LA Knight, and then if Cena wants to stick around too, but I think he's done in October, so who knows? Because we'll
Well,
see what
yeah, I
happens.
think
But
we're done. I think we're done with him, but I will say I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like that. I mean, I don't know if Survivor Series is in Chicago, so I don't know if maybe I can't really put my
that
finger
spot
on it.
goes.
What you know
You
what
know, let's just address the elephant in the room. So,
yeah.
I will let you lead the story. So, who is in talks of coming back to WWE?
So the word on the street, pretty much everywhere, is that CM Punk has had major discussions with WWE about returning. They are very fluid. It sounds like everything is great. He's kind of touching on there was this one report that came out late last night that he needs to mend fences specifically with Roman Reigns. But in a recent article, that Roman reads that he said that even though he doesn't like CM Punk, he knows how much money they could make together, and he's always going to choose business over feelings. I think that's a massive indictment on the Young Bucks because they weren't willing to do the same thing. I think that this would be the fourth big get for WWE to steal from AEW. And as I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I've said this on my own podcast that CM Punk craves structure. I think he thought he was going to get that in AEW and he didn't get it. He needs the structure of WWE. And it's not as tight-lipped as it was when Vince McMahon was there. So I think that he'll be a little clearer with this. I don't think he signs though. I think there's one thing he needs, and that is a main event at WrestleMania. That's all he wants. That is what is missing from his career. He's not the type of guy like he's not like Brian Danielson. That Brian's just like whatever. I did everything in my career. All I wanted to do was win the Rumble. I didn't get a chance to do it. Whatever. No, Punk. That is his thing. He wants to main event WrestleMania. So that's kind of how I look at it. They have to give him that, whether it's this year or next year, however they do it. And that's all I see right there. As long as they give him that, and as long as he meets them in terms of his attitude, and maybe like getting fired from AEW was like hitting rock bottom. I think this would really work because he's a massive deal, and I'm gonna go as far as to say that if CM Punk comes back to WWE, then Vince Russo will be right. Then that will affect Cody because WWE fans love CM Punk more. And CM Punk's just better at everything. Like I love Cody, but he can't really touch Punk at anything. So it's like, what are you gonna do? Now, if have them feud, that would be great. That would be great.
I love it. So, Again, those are our predictions for Fastlane, and we are looking
Mhm.
forward already to Survivor Series to see what that comes with that. My friend, I love always having you, and I get double of you tonight because stay tuned because we will be back with our Fastlane review, and Luis will be on it. But that is going to be it for this Friday Night Faction review this week. If you like these long form reviews, we have a whole bunch of other ones between the weekly shows and the pay per views here on the YouTube channel. So make sure to check those out. You should check out our
Mhm.
social and follow us along at social medias to get notifications of when said episodes go live, as well as some fun clips from our episodes and some behind the scenes stuff. And if you think we have opinions and you think this was unhinged, you should check out our actual podcast, the Biconics Wrestling Podcast, where we're more unhinged. Again, we're supposed to be talking about wrestling, but for a good hour in the last episode, we just went into a whole conspiracy theory about this merger. And things were said. If you want to know what we said, you should probably go subscribe and go check us out where all podcasts can be found. But from me and Luis, remember, be biconic, you beautiful peoples, and we will see you later for the Fastlane review. Take care.
See ya.